Hello, good evening, and welcome to Bookmakers TV. I am Gav from the LFC Day Trippers. This is the Premier League preview show, and I'm joined by Liam Canning, Jamie from Daily Hotspur, and Joe from Just Joe Football Show. Um, as usual, on a Thursday night, we'll do 30 to 35 minutes. We're going to touch on some games that are coming up this weekend because the Premier League is back. And we were just saying before we come on, regardless of what teams you're seeing matched up against each other, it's just big games everywhere, the way the league has fallen. So, there's only one place to start though, for me, and it's Tottenham. The Conte stuff has gone on for a while. He absolutely goes through the players after that draw before the international break at Southampton, and you're like, there's no coming back from this. There's simply
Yeah,
no coming back from this. It kind of goes on a little bit, and then it's like, is he, like, I'll put it this way, about 4 or 5 days ago, I was like, he hasn't been sacked. I just presumed he'd been sacked and he was still a Spurs manager. But now he's not, and it looks like they're going to have temporary managers in place till the end of the season. Of course, Nagelsmann leaves Bayern and everyone thinks, oh, look, it's fit at the perfect time. But Jamie, I'll come to you first before I get the lads' take on it. I seen another Spurs fan yesterday, the day before, going, I just beg for one normal day as a Spurs fan. That's all I want. Just one normal day. But it just doesn't seem to come about, does it?
no, unfortunately not. I mean, look, during the international break, we all kind of thought we were going to get that bit of relief from Tottenham, obviously with Antonio Conte, that explosive run, drawing 3 at Southampton. We were always delighted to get a break from it, but look, we decided to go and sack Antonio Conte. Obviously, real issues with our sporting director as well. I mean, that situation looks really messy. I mean, it was on Tuesday evening. He released kind of a video where he looked like he'd almost was from doing it from a prison cell. Really, it was the most bizarre video. Almost 5 minutes of him really kind of telling the supporters nothing to worry about. Everything's good. We've got 10 more games. Just keep betting behind the team. Literally the following morning, it comes out from FIFA that he's been banned for 30 months, and all of a sudden we've lost our sporting director.
Worldwide ban, wasn't it?
Worldwide ban. So
Yeah.
obviously he was originally banned in Italy, and so really messy situation there. Look, it's just bizarre situation how Spurs have handled this one, because when Juventus found out about it, their entire board resigned, and we've decided to stick by this guy who's been convicted of all these what he did at Juventus in terms of cooking the books there. And we've stuck by him. And even after it's come out that the ban's been extended to worldwide, we've decided to defend him as well. We've also claiming that we didn't see this coming. But I think for weeks and months, Spurs fans have been talking about, when's this Paratici ban going to come about? We all knew it was going to come and happen. And, Spurs have almost just stuck their heads in the sand with this situation. And it's obviously all come into fruition now. And we've lost our sporting director, lost our manager. The women's team don't have a manager either. We look like we're probably going to lose our best striker in the summer. He's obviously running down his contract now. It's a bit of a mess at the moment. The squad's in a mess as well. We saw Antonio Conte absolutely rip into them. I think he was right to do so. I think there's become a bit of a culture in that dressing room now where they've let down Jose Mourinho, they've let down Maurizio Pochettino, now they've let down Antonio Conte. And it just feels as though they've got too much power, those players. I think a lot of them have been there for a very long time. They're all very comfortable. When it comes to playing under a bit of pressure, as we've seen against AC Milan, of course, Sheffield United going away there, they've just crumbled. And I think Antonio Conte, he obviously recognised there was a real issue in that dressing room, and I think he knew he was on his way out, and he's tried to throw them a bit under the bus, which I think in some respects he was right to do. Didn't help himself, Antonio Conte, at times. I think obviously his mood really didn't help at all. I think that just generally the whole mood of the club was pretty poor. So it's a real messy situation, and Daniel Levy's got a lot to kind of clean up now, because he's got to find a sporting director and a manager. So it's not great times at Spurs at the moment.
There's 10 games to go. They're in a big hunt for top four. They're still well in it, I was only looking at it today. Now, I know Newcastle have a couple of games on hand on them, so did Liverpool, but that's presuming Newcastle and Liverpool both win their games in hand to catch up. I think if Liverpool win their game in hand, they'd be a point behind Spurs, but Newcastle are kind of in the driving seat for that top four spot, because they've 2 games in hand. I think they're only a point behind Spurs. And it kind of felt inevitable to me that Conte wouldn't last, and that was before the Spurs thing or the Southampton thing. I just felt like it's just gonna go any minute now, and I was kind of expecting it. Nearly from the turn of the year, I was expecting it. And you were talking about Harry Kane there leaving, or running down his contract. There was talk earlier on in the season that he was going to sign an extension to that contract. Do you think? Do you think there's more of a chance of him signing a deal now? Because I think they've. You see, I think Harry Kane would have a lot of sway in that club as to who the new manager should be. And if he puts a name forward, say like a Nagelsmann, and he decides, that's the fellow we want, there's more chance of Kane signing a contract. So it's not just getting a new manager, is it? It's actually putting the right manager in place for the club, but also protecting certain assets.
Yeah.
Does
So
this affect the Kane thing?
yeah, look, I'd say 100%. He's going to have some say in the next manager, and that's the worry at Spurs at the moment. There is real kind of control in the players' hands, and I don't think that's ever a good thing when the players have that much say over who's the next manager, and obviously whether a manager should be sacked or not. I mean, maybe in the case with Harry Kane, it's okay because he's obviously such a big figure at Spurs. The guy who's come through our academy, recognised as one of the best teams, one of the best strikers in the world. So he's such a key figure. So maybe he should have somewhat of a say. But I think at the moment, you look at any top manager, I don't know why any top manager would want to come into a situation like Spurs at the moment. They've seen Jose Mourinho fail. They've seen Antonio Conte fail. So why should they come to Spurs now? So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see who we can attract. And I think that will probably influence Kane's decision. He'll have 1 year left in the summer. And so I think it's just all going to depend on who the manager is and whether he thinks that that's the right guy. I do think that he can. It's difficult to know where he'd go. I mean, obviously Manchester United's definitely an option for him.
Rumour of Bayern Munich come up today again.
Exactly. I think he'll stay in the Premier League because he's obviously very much got his eyes set on that record, and I think records are something that he very much kind of desires, and obviously that Premier League all-time scoring record. So he's definitely going to stay in the Premier League, in my opinion. Manchester United really seems the only option. Manchester City maybe, but I can only see that happening when Haaland leaves the club, and don't know when that's going to be. So he's the lack of options might swing us in our favour. But I think United, as Liam might say, I think they might go for someone different and maybe a younger profile.
Liam, just on the sports thing, Jamie says there, Mourinho's failed and Conte's failed. I just never felt that their managers suited that club, because that club to me is a perfect club where you put someone in place and go, right, we're going to look for value in the market, but we're going to make it very clear from the start that this is going to take a couple of years to happen. And Mourinho or Conte just simply don't do that. They just simply don't work by that. And if you look back at United with Moyes, with Van Gaal, Mourinho, Solskjaer, and they went from one extreme to the other kind of with those sorts of managers, and it didn't work. And what they've done is they've gone to Holland, they've gone to Ten Hag, who's not a young man, he's early 50s, I think. And they've gone to him, but they've gone to him where he's not the biggest person in the room, the biggest ego in the room if they're going to look for managers. But he's very experienced, he knows what he's doing. And United fans, I think, and this is from the outside looking in, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but United fans have got it from the very start with Ten Hag that we might finish 5th or 6th. We might win a League Cup, we might, whatever it might be, but we're going to have to cut our cloth accordingly. Even if we're going to spend a lot of money, we're going to have to wait for this to happen and give it time. And that's what Spurs need to do. But it's all very well saying that, Liam, isn't it? It's actually letting that process happen. That's another.
Yeah, 100%. I think Tottenham's situation is very akin to what United have been through over the last 5 years. And the only sort of words I can think that can create any sort of positivity for Jamie is that it will change eventually, but you need a manager like a Pochettino to go in there, that type of model where you trust the manager and you trust their instincts and you have a club reset. That's what you need. And that's exactly what United needed, and that's what Ten Hag brought. But it takes time, and you're chasing short-term successes. And I get it because Tottenham haven't won a trophy, I think, since 2008, and before that was 20 years or 10 years, 15 years before that. So I get it, but it's a case of you've got to build slowly to achieve, I think, in that sort of next 5-year period. You can't just chase after Conte, Mourinho, and those type of managers, because you've seen the type of transfer strategy that they have. And it's a very 29-year-old plus strategy that leaves you in a bit of a dark hole when they don't, achieve the success that you guys think they might. So I think whether it's Pochettino, whether it's Nagelsmann, whether it's someone else that's on the market that can come in, sort of uproot the club again and take a little bit of control away from Levy, which is very, very difficult to do. And I thought it was a massive statement of intent that they've come out and backed Paratici when he has been banned worldwide. That's huge, and that could be Levy's downfall, to be fair, at Tottenham. The fact that he has gone so deep in with this when it was the easy option to say, look, he's been banned, it's time to move on and reboot, but he's doubled down on it. So, all this chaos, we're talking about Tottenham, all this chaos, but they're still fourth. They're still in the hunt for a top four finish. So, to be fair to them, it is crazy what's going on around the club, but they're still there or thereabouts.
Joe.
Yeah.
Now you're at a club.
I've got loads to answer to. I've got loads. I've been clocking it up. I've got my thoughts on Spurs. I'm telling you.
I was going to ask you because you support a club that's gone through loads of managers,
yes.
and you've seen your team in League One, the Championship, the Premier League, where you want a quick fix to certain things because you're in League One. You have to get out of there. You want a quick fix out of the Championship, but then you realise, hold on, this might take longer than we think, so let's put something in place. Jesse Marsh comes in, doesn't work, and you've seen quick fixes from one end and going down to, you need to be patient. Where do you stand on this one with Spurs? Because I'd be all over the Brentford manager. I'm going to put it out there, right? I think he's done a wonderful job at Brentford. I think he's still underrated. I think he gets his players playing for him. He's really good in the transfer market, and he's the perfect guy, I think, that would think his way through the process of Spurs if given a free hit for 2 seasons. I think you would see that. What sort of manager did he go for? Because he can't go back down to Mourinho, the Conte, even though I dare say the Pochettino route. You know what I mean? He can't go back to where he used to be because it didn't work. Nagelsmann is there. Where do you sit on that?
Yeah, I think the Nagelsmann one. Yeah, initially when he got the boot, you were thinking, right, okay, I think it's a madness that Spurs have kept. Is it Stellini? Is that his name? Until the end of the season. Because he's basically Conte's man. It don't make no sense to me. But anyway, I think the manager they should be going for, and I think he's been linked. Leeds United were linked to him. We tried to get him. Is Arne Slot over at Feyenoord. I think he's doing bits over there. I think he's that project type manager, if you like. I mentioned it weeks back, and now I've seen it's getting picked up by the Football Ramble, etc. I think he would be perfect for Spurs. It's a bit disappointing because I was hoping Leeds might go back if we stay in the Premier League, but it does look like he's looking for, he probably deserves a big, a bigger club, if you like, higher up the division anyway, with a bit more money to spend, etc. So that would be the name. But my thoughts on Spurs, and I've asked Arsenal fans this today, because obviously we're playing Arsenal at the weekend. But if you don't get Champions League this season, you lose Kane. There's a massive overhaul of squad needed. Football's cyclical. I think Spurs' time at the top end of the Premier League, and this might sound wild, could be coming to an end, because next season you've got no chance of Champions League if you don't get it this, because who are you going to attract players wise, who are you going to attract manager wise? Next season Liverpool will improve, Chelsea will improve, Man United will improve. You've then got Arsenal, you've got City, Newcastle will enter the party, as will Aston Villa, I think, for me, because I think they'll go again under Emery. And I look at Spurs and I think, oh God, what's next? And I wanted to get a Spurs and your folks' opinion, because if Kane, I think Kane's Man United. I've said for time, if Fergie was at Man United still, he'd have got him years ago. I think Spurs are in real trouble, mate. I genuinely believe it might be a wild take, but if you don't get Champions League this year, then what? Will you even get Europe next year? And that might sound wild now, but I'm not. I genuinely believe that it's that sort of sliding doors moment for Spurs this season.
Is it a case of, like we talk about sway in the dressing room, and I promise we will get on to games in a minute, but this is a good conversation. Is it a case of, we talk about the sway in the dressing room that the likes of Harry Kane may have, even the likes of Eric Dyer may have, he's there an awful long time, Son, right, who's, probably their second best player, second most influential player, and there's one or two others, Lloris, sort of way. Is there a case of they have that much sway that if Kane decides at the end of the season, say Spurs finish 5th, right, and they're in the Europa League, and Kane decides, no, I'm not having that. I'm 29 years of age. I think he's 29 now. I'm 29. I've probably one big, massive contract left in me. And I'm only saying that because it'll bring him to probably 34. And, Harry Kane has been known to pick up injuries, and it's well known you pick up more injuries the older you get. But is it a case of if Harry Kane's around, so I'm not having that, I'm out of here, that the likes of a Son, Lloris, I don't think will be a massive loss, but there's other players there that will turn around and go, well, if he's out, I'm out. Because, this is the not the foundation that they're built on, but he's our main man. And if he's not having it, does he know more than we know? Like, Jamie, what do you make on that from Joe? Like, when you think about it, it's actually not too much of a mad show.
Yeah, no, I don't think so. I mean, look, Spurs, I think first and foremost, I feel like we've wasted 4 years, really. I mean, you guys obviously mentioned it as well in terms of going after the wrong profile of manager. Under Mauricio Pochettino, we kind of very much had that, where we had a guy who was able to work with players, develop players, obviously wasn't given the top stars, big money signings. He was obviously made to work with maybe younger players who was brought in, and he could do that. He was willing to do that. Jose Mourinho, Antonio Conte, these are managers that weren't going to do that. So it just didn't fit everything. And that's something that Spurs just kind of lost their identity, really. We tried to chase a real quick fix and try and secure silverware. And by doing that, we've just gone completely away from the likes of, our transfer policy and everything like that. And it's just not worked. And it's been so many wrong decisions over the last 4 years. And it's now kind of led to the squad becoming very stale. There's a lot to be done in terms of rebuilding this squad and moving players on. There's been Eric Dyer, Ben Davis, Hugo Lloris, Harry Kane, and there's just so many players in that squad who have been there for far too long. And I think what they now know is, because it's much cheaper to just get rid of the manager than to get rid of all these players and to pay off these contracts. They know they're completely safe and that they're untouchable, really. So they're almost gone into a comfort zone. And I think they know they can go to Daniel Levy or they can go to the club when they're not happy with the manager and say, look, we want this guy to go. And because they've got all the power. And I think as well, when the going gets tough, and as I mentioned, in those big games, in those pressurised situations, because they're in a comfort zone where they're not having to play for their contract, they're not having to play for their place at the squad in the squad, because they know that they're going to stay there and they're on a big contract, and Daniel Levy's not going to sell them, and Daniel Levy's going to keep them. So for me, just the whole dressing room culture just needs a complete reset, and that there is a really big rebuild that needs to happen, and maybe sacrificing Harry Kane might be the way to do it. Because unfortunately, we've had Harry Kane now for 9+ years or so. And it hasn't worked. And as I said, it just feels as though there is a culture reset that needs to happen at Spurs, and certainly in the dressing room. So, yeah, I certainly can see maybe next season being very difficult. But again, I just think there's a long road back for Spurs now to get back to the top, because they've got to just kind of find an identity again, and getting the right manager who's going to be patient and develop players, and getting a sporting director who's going to be able to work with them and find the right players. But yeah, do I trust Daniel Levy to do that? I don't think I do, because he just doesn't really understand football, and he is a bit of a control freak, unfortunately. He's never going to relinquish that control. We all thought when Paratici come in, he was going to be given full control. He hasn't been. Even with Conte, he went against Paratici's decision and sacked him. So, yes, it's a real mess at Spurs at the moment. And I think it's just years of poor decision-making that's kind of led to this situation. And, I think the next couple of years could be quite difficult.
It's a huge decision on a number of levels. Not only on the playing side of things, getting the right manager in, but it's like you say, you have to get it right massively. because of all the other teams around that look like they'll improve and get better or get back to where they were and stuff like that. And yeah, I think it's a huge decision and a bit of a surprise that they're leaving the two lads, I think, to run it till the end of the season. But then again, familiarity is probably the easiest way to go with it. And who's going to come in for 6 months anyway, or 3 months at Spurs, to try to do a job with no guarantee, unless they were going to offer the likes of Nagelsmann big money. But it's probably the right decision to leave them there at the end of the season and stick with what you know, to a certain extent. Looking to the weekend though, let's start with United. United travel away to Newcastle. Of course, they beat Newcastle in the League Cup final. Newcastle wobbled a little bit, but are getting back to themselves. A few injuries for United, Liam. Casemiro, I think, is still banned, is he?
Yeah, he's got 3 games left. He had 4
3 games left. Sabitzer, did he get injured?
Well, there was talk of it, but he's been in training, so I don't know.
Okay, he's okay. But it's a big game, isn't it? Because it could all bunch up big time in this top 4 again, come the end of the weekend.
Yeah, no, 100% agree. The last thing United need is to be dragged into that sort of 4th place. They sort of need to separate again from 3rd to 4th and take the pressure off the league. But, going to St James's Park and seeing the season, wobble or not from them, it's a very, very difficult and hostile place to go. And I just think that they won again. I think they won against Forest 2-1, in the last minute of the game, and that would have given them such a big boost going into that 2-week period. United, on the other hand, we beat Fulham in the FA Cup, but for 75 minutes of that, we looked absolutely dreadful, like really, really dreadful. No sort of passage to our play at all. So I'm just hoping that the 2-week break sort of refreshed a few lads, and they go again, on the weekend and start playing some of that attractive football that we've seen in bits across the season. But Casemiro is obviously a big miss. Sabitzer might not be there. Martial hasn't been there the whole season, but there's a rumour that he might be back, which would be very helpful to have him in the squad. But if I'm going to sort of predict what might happen, I actually think it'll be a draw. I think I'd even take a draw, to be honest. Like, obviously, I want to go for the 3 points and United to win, but just realistically, the way we've been playing over the last sort of 3-4 weeks hasn't been great. If they can raise their levels, then of course you'd back a win. But if they're playing at that sort of level, then I think a draw is most likely. As long as you avoid defeat, I think you've done well at St James's.
Because if Newcastle were to win, they go into 3rd place on goal difference. And although Spurs could win at the weekend and jump them both, but there's 2 games in hand there. Spurs will know their job because they don't play till Monday. But it's a big, it is a big game. Joe, Newcastle versus United. Where are you looking at?
I could see a draw, mate, to be honest. 1 apiece, I think. And like Liam said, I think if you can get away with St James's with anything, really, it's a really tough place to go. So I don't think a point is great. Well, is a point great for either side? I don't know. I reckon both managers probably would take that and say, do you know what, let's take a point and go move to next week. It's a tough place to go. So yeah, I'd say 1-1, Gav, I'll go for, mate.
Jamie?
Yeah, I really like the look of a draw as well. And I think Newcastle will be interesting because they obviously had that run coming after the World Cup of a period where they were struggling to score, obviously struggling to get wins with the board as well. And they did really drop off. But it does feel like they have picked up a little bit recently. I think that win against Nottingham Forest was big for them. They look very good and they were very worthy winners. I don't think going to the City Ground this season is going to be very easy at all. I think Nottingham Forest at home have been very much a different proposition. So that was a big win for them. Obviously, Alexander Isak as well, getting twice on the score sheet, a very, very good player. And if they can get firing and back into form, then I think that I think they're going to be in good stead. So exactly there. So I think Isak's going to be a big player for them now in these last couple of matches. And as well, maybe they might look at Man United with no Casemiro. Obviously, I think Rashford will probably play. I think it was very much just the case they were protecting him over the international break. But is he going to be 100%? Probably, maybe he might be. But so they might look at Man United in terms of where they're at the moment, and this could be a good chance to take advantage of them. And as well, we've all said it, St James's Park's going to be a very difficult place to go. It's a massive game for them. Obviously, they're really in the race for the top 4 now, Newcastle, and their fans will really sense that. And I think they'll want to kind of really get behind the team here, and I think that will play a big part. I like the look. I think it's been a really exciting game. I think like a 2-2 draw here. I think it's going to be a really good one.
I'm going to go against you all. I think United beat them. I think Newcastle have struggled this season. You know, Liverpool have beaten them twice, and I think City have beaten them, and they haven't lost. They've drawn a load of games. I think they've drawn 12 games this season, or drawn 11 and won 12, something like that. Lost 3. But I think Newcastle's issue might be whenever I've seen them, when they're asked to dictate a game, they can be in trouble a little bit. And I think with the fact that Casemiro is out, United might fall into letting Newcastle have a fair bit of the ball. But then look to hurt them. If Rashford is fit, you know, Antio was asking there, has Rashford been in training here? There was an injury with Rashford. I'm not too sure on that. But I think it would actually suit United to let Newcastle have a lot of the ball. And it's probably the best way to take a sting out of a game, because it's 4:30 on a Sunday. You know, everyone's going to be out for a few drinks before and the place will be rocking. And Liverpool went there and took the sting out of Newcastle by, you know, well, they didn't. They gave them a chance in the first minute. But after that, they took the sting out of it by not turning it into a game of tennis, you know, where it just went back and up and back and forward, and took the sting out and took the sting out and took their chances. And I think that's the way United will probably be forced to approach it with Casemiro not there.
If you look at the League Cup, Newcastle actually dominated that game for large parts of it, and United hit them on the counter. And I think that'll be the exact carbon copy of what we'll look at.
Now, the only thing against that is that Newcastle, I presume they're not stupid, so they're probably going to look and go, well, this is what they've done in the League Cup, this is what they're probably going to do again, but we have to do something. But I think it suits United better. I think if you have Rashford, Anthony on the break, you know, Fernandes is really good on the break. So there's a fair few players there that can hurt. I'm going to just go United. I think I go 2-1. But like it's mad when you look at these fixtures at the weekend, because just game upon game is big. Joe, Leeds go to Arsenal 3:00 on Saturday. Arsenal are currently 8 points clear. They've played a game more than Man City. We'll get on to City in a minute. But you got a big win away at Wolves before the international break. Does this feel like a bit of a free hit after that? Do you have to treat it like that?
Yeah.
Because like Arsenal have been really good, but at times you look at Arsenal and you say to yourself, I think there's going to be a stage where Arsenal get caught, right? In one game, in a single game where they don't quite be at it. They go a goal down and they've turned a lot of games around. You know, they've turned games around at home where they've been behind and stuff like that. But I think there might be a time where they get caught. And I don't know if it'll be this weekend, but is that what Leeds?
I don't think it will be.
I don't think it will be. Because I know Leeds have injuries as well.
Yeah, man. We've lost Adams for the rest of the season. Nonto's out, and so is Max Vorber. It's like almost near enough the spine of the team. We're going there. Arsenal are flying. Saka's amazing and has had a good international break as well. Martinelli, Trossard, Jesus, whatever. I can't see us getting anything. I'm not confident at all. But listen, we've got Forest and Palace after that. So, you know, that's where our games are. So it is a free hit for me. Danny has followed me. Danny, big up to Danny Rumsey. He comes on all my videos, so love me. And he's consistently said 1-1, Joe. We're getting something. If any manager can do it, though, from what I've seen from Grazia, his tactics is very much what's the opposition going to do to us, so therefore I'm going to counteract it. He got us a point against Brighton playing a certain way, which was a great point. I think he'll go with a low block. I think Arsenal will find it hard to break us down, but I just think they will have enough with the quality that they've got. If we can stay in the game, 70 minutes, 0-0, we're talking Dyche ball-esque here, but it is what it is. Needs must have. And listen, Rodrigo has been clinical this season. I don't think he'll start, but he'll bring him on. Maybe we get that one chance. To be honest, we gave them a really good game at Ellen Road where they beat us 1-0 earlier in the season. But again, that was under Jesse. It's a different guy now. We're just going to defend, and hopefully nick something on the break. But I just don't think we'll keep them out. I reckon 2-1. Because I do think we'll score. They are conceding a lot of goals at the Emirates, but I think they'll have too much for us. 2-1, maybe 3-1.
I think with this one, with Arsenal play Liverpool the following week. And Arsenal will be desperate to get 3 points on the board before they go to Anfield. As indifferent as Liverpool have been, Arsenal don't have a nice time at Anfield. They just don't. The vast majority of the times, and Liverpool have handed them some hidings at Anfield. So Arsenal will want to get these 3 points on the board because they don't want to be going into Anfield with they're dropping 2 points. Could we drop 3 more and see up our backside, you know, that sort of way. I think it'll be 3-1 to Arsenal as well. Jamie?
Yeah, I mean, look, the last time I predicted a Leeds game, I did predict a defeat. Obviously, proved me completely wrong.
Yeah.
I'm going to try and do exactly the same again here. I'm going to predict
Good man.
another defeat for Leeds and hopefully make me look a bit silly. I'm going to go. I like the look of 3-1 as well. I think Joe was right. They have been conceding goals, so Leeds can maybe nick something. Obviously, really disappointing to hear that Leeds are missing players. I think Nonto is a fantastic player. Obviously, Tyler Adams as well, very good player. So yeah, disappointing to hear that. And unfortunately, I do think Arsenal will just come out on top here. But yeah, 3-1 to Arsenal, I think. Hopefully, I'm wrong.
Quick, clean sweep, Liam.
4-1 Arsenal. They can come out racing. Too many chances will be created. Leeds might get one, but it'll be straightforward for Arsenal.
Okay. It's hard to argue because I still feel there's a home game somewhere for Arsenal where they've not got away with a couple, but fought back through a couple, and Bournemouth at home, they're 2-0 down. I think they're
Villa as well, weren't it? Villa as well.
I think maybe it was a Fulham.
I would have backed Leeds if they didn't have the injuries. Adams is huge miss. If they didn't have injuries, I'd say they've got a great chance, but just think it's too much.
Yeah, and I think they fight back from 1-0 down at home to Fulham as well, Arsenal. But I just think that might be one where they might come unstuck. It might be this Saturday, but I think going on form, I think Arsenal will just have enough. The early game is City against Liverpool, and Liverpool need to win games to stay in this top 4 race, but could have a massive say in the title race because they play City away. They play City away on Saturday, then they're away to Chelsea midweek, and then they play Arsenal at home the following week. So it's a huge week for Liverpool for themselves. But if they were to go and beat City early on Saturday, Arsenal we can go 11 clear here. We can go 11 clear here with, City would only have one game in hand and have to play Arsenal, but Arsenal would feel, who cares? I hate half 12s kickoffs. I despise them.
You haven't won one this season, have you?
I don't like. I think Liverpool have never won a half 12 game. They clearly have because they went about 2 seasons without losing the game. But I just don't like them, and especially when they're away, I just do not like them. But this is a game where I'm never concerned about Liverpool not turning up against the likes of City, United, Chelsea, Arsenal, Spurs, whatever. It's the other ones. It's like the Bournemouth a couple of weeks ago. But this one, I'm finding very hard to get my head around. Because it's been after an international break, you nearly forget what players are playing for you, who's available. I know Luis Diaz is back in full training, which is great to see. City probably think they have to win every league game from here on in. I think they have to win every league game just to nudge Arsenal. I hope they don't. I want Arsenal to win the league. I want to go and beat them both in the week. I know you don't like that, Jamie, but genuinely, I want Arsenal to win the league above City. Anybody will City is the way I look at it at the minute. But I'll let you all go first because I'm just finding it hard to get my head around this. Jamie, City v Liverpool, because they're always belting games.
Yeah, they are. I was looking at kind of the stats for behind how many goals there have been. I think it was something like the last eight of the last 12 or something have seen like over 4 goals in them. So it's always a very exciting fixture, this one. I think you mentioned there, though, it's a 12:30 kickoff. So I do think this will be maybe a lower scoring one. Yeah, it is difficult to call this one. I think before the international break, City did look pretty good. Obviously, thrashed Burnley 6-0, thrashed Leipzig as well, obviously putting 7 past them. So they did look like a team that was kind of coming back into a bit of form. I think Erling Haaland probably won't play this one. He wasn't in training today, so that suggests
he'll
that
play.
He'll definitely play. He'll
definitely, man. Yeah, of course, man.
Should pop up on. Is it on BT? Is it?
It definitely.
Yeah, it's BT.
Yeah, half 12. Yeah. It'll pop up on BT at 11:30. Haaland starts.
Well, that would be a nice bit of TV. I'm not going to lie. I am a City fan for this game, unfortunately, with it being obviously the team they're chasing. So I do think City will just come out on top here. I'm going to go for a 2-0 for Man City. I think as well Liverpool have been boosted, like as you said, with Diaz back, Nunez back as well. So kind of differing team news. I mean, you guys are saying that Haaland were back. That'd be nice, but I think Man City will just about come on top here. I'm going to go for 2-0. Sorry about that.
That's fine. Liam.
Liverpool are just so difficult to predict. You just don't know what team turns up. But I do agree with Jamie. I just think City will have too much. Haaland will definitely start. He could be ruled out until 1 minute to go, and he'll be on that pitch, no problem. And I just think he actually looks, in the last 3 weeks, I know all the goals and whatnot, but his actual performances looked very, very sharp. And it finally looked like City has started to click with him in it. So I just think early kickoff as well at the Etihad. I think 3-1 City.
I have a feeling it's going to start at 12:30, and by about 7 minutes in, there'll be a penalty or a red card, and it'll be mayhem. That's what I get that feeling. And Liverpool have this thing where they turn up and either don't start at the start or don't start at the start of the second half. They have this in them at the minute. But you're right, they're very hard to judge because they could turn up and go, well, we'll show you how good we are. And, before you know, Liverpool are 2-0 up. And that's why I'm finding it hard to get my head around. I'm not going to back against Liverpool, just to let you know. Joe.
Yeah, I genuinely don't know how to call it, mate. I think because City are at the Etihad, I think they will win the game. But it's much like Liam said, you just don't know what Liverpool are going to turn up, right? Like, we've seen what they did to Man United, and then the week after they go lose to Bournemouth. You know what I mean? It's madness. I just think it'll be a great game of football. I do think Haaland will start. Is Luis Diaz back in? Like, will he?
Full training.
Will he? Yeah, good. I really like Diaz. I might put him in my fantasy
brilliant.
team. Yeah, he's a top player. Differential pick there for the fantasy team, I think. But yeah, listen, I don't know, mate. It's going to be exciting. Let's go for a humdinger 3-2 to City.
Okay, I'm going the other way. I'm going 3-2 Liverpool.
Nice.
But I am caveating it with all bets are off if City score in the first 5 minutes and it's a penalty or a red card involved. Because I just have that feeling. Every time I think of the Etihad, I think of Mane getting sent off. Right? Every time. And I know there's been loads of games since, but I always think of the Etihad, early goal, they get a red card, they get a penalty, and then you're like, this game's over. Do you know what I mean? Because they're so tightly matched, these two sides. Like, even in the season Liverpool are having, if you watch the game at Anfield, it's an absolute belting game of football where they're at each other for the whole 90, 95 minutes, wherever it was, and it's a Salah goal that wins it. Do you know what I mean? And they're just, when they go up against each other, I think the respect they have for each other means that it just becomes so intense, and any little mistake could be the one where it's all over the place. Danny has 4-0 to City, Haaland, Patrick and Foden. Foden won't play. He's had a surgery on appendicitis, hasn't he? So he won't play unless if he fucking turns up on Saturday morning at 12:30, there's something seriously wrong. Do you know what I mean? But I'm gonna go 3-2. Last game of the weekend we're gonna talk about is Everton versus Spurs on Monday, because there are just so many big games down there at the minute. I always find myself looking at the bottom of this table. It's so intriguing. Crazy. And Everton are up to 15th, but they played a game more than most people. They've played 2 games more than West Ham. And you look at some of the fixtures that are coming up this weekend, like just to run through for you, right? Like Palace play Leicester, right? Forest play Wolves, right? Brighton versus Brentford is the other end of the table. Bournemouth have a home game against Fulham. And then there's Everton against Spurs. So there's just loads going on down there. And we could be sitting at 5 o'clock or 4:30 on Saturday going, look at the change in the league table. And then it's like, no, same as it was, because loads of things are happening. Jamie, Spurs have to go and look for 3 points here. I don't care how good Everton have been at home, or if they're being good at home and, this, that and that. They must go and beat Everton on Monday night.
Yeah, 100%. I think you're right. There is that slight caveat that this is a Sean Dyche Everton side, and they have obviously taken points of Arsenal as well. Obviously beat Arsenal 1-0 in Sean Dyche's first match. So there is that little bit of a worry. But yeah, I think you're right. Spurs have to go and win here. And I think this is really just going to determine where we're going to be for the rest of the season. I think if we fail this challenge and, we drop points here, I think that's the season done. I really think it's as simple as that. If we don't get all 3 points here, we're not going to get any sort of reaction, because we've got rid of Conte, who supposedly is the problem, who's supposedly been this negative figure around the dressing room. So the players have got what they wanted. They've got rid of the manager. So they've now got to go and show a bit of a bounce. I think Stellini and Ryan Mason, Yes, of course, Stellini is still obviously Conte's guy, but I do think that he was much more liked around the dressing room than Conte. So that could play a bit of a factor, but I don't think we will get a response here. I don't think we're going to get an emphatic response and get all 3 points. I think it's going to be a very dull game of football because Spurs, I think we've obviously had trouble at times in terms of really trying to penetrate defences. And this is, again, Sean Dyche's Everton side. So going to be very difficult to break down. So it's going to be a game of very few goals, and I'm going to go for 1-0 here.
Okay. Just one other thing at the weekend. Southampton host West Ham, which is a monster game. Because West Ham will look at that as their game in hand and could jump above quite a few sides with a win against Southampton and probably bury Southampton, to be honest with you. Joe, I'll come to you next. Everton Spurs.
Yeah, I agree with Jamie. I think this is must win for Spurs because it's like you've changed the manager and that. Well, you haven't really for me. That's what I'm saying. It still feels the same scenario. It's like Leeds when we had Scabala. Yeah, we got great result against Man United, drew, and then we got beat. But it's like it was always going to get up for Man United, and then we get beat by Everton. Sometimes you do actually need to change, and I'm not sure this is a big enough change. You know, is it Richarlison? You've had Romero reports saying that if Conte wouldn't have gone, they'd have gone at the end of the season, all this sort of stuff. So them players now have to say, we were right, he was wrong, we have to spank Everton. Whether or not they'll do that, yeah, it's genuine. Like I said, sliding doors moment. If they lose here, then Spurs won't get top 4. So it's a big. I hope they win, by the way, because obviously I want Everton to lose, but I don't know. I think we might see another 1-0 Everton win. To be honest,
it's interesting because if Everton be looking at this game for me on Monday night, knowing what's happened over the weekend, but with West Ham playing Southampton, one team are probably getting a good result out of that, right? Yeah. Don't Leicester away to Palace. So Leicester and Palace are quite close to each other in the league. Like Palace currently sit on 27 points, Leicester on 25. But Palace
Forest and Wolves as well, man. That's huge.
But Palace are in 12th on 27 points, and Leicester are 17th on 25. That's how close it is. You know, what was the other one you said there? Wolves.
It's Forest Wolves as well.
Forest and Wolves sit a point away from each other. So if there's 3 positive results in them games, Everton will be looking on Monday night going, say for Everton, saying, right, West Ham have moved to 27 above us, okay, with a game in hand. If Leicester were to win, they go to 28, okay, on the same amount of games. And I don't know, Forest or Leeds or whoever gets a result then, they're looking on 3 teams have got positive results this weekend. So Everton will have to come out. I know it's a must win for Spurs, but Everton will probably look on, if we don't win this, you know, few teams have gone above us and we've played more games than them. It starts to look a bit rocky. Liam, the lads are on this 1-0, 1-1 buzz. Where you were.
I just think Monday night, 8 o'clock at Goodison Park is probably the worst time you can play Everton.
Yeah, true.
That stadium is going to be absolutely bouncing, especially after that last-minute equaliser against Chelsea or break. I'm going for an Everton win. I just think it's not big enough change. I agree with Joe. It's not big enough change to make that sort of bounce happen. Whether it's psychological or not, there's still bounce when you sack a coach and bring someone new in. I just think Stellini's still part of Conte's management team. And I just think Spurs are still going to be as stagnant as ever. They might get a goal, but I just think Everton will, once that noise gets behind you and in that ground, and if they're on the attack, it's just going to be infectious. I think Spurs will struggle with that. So I'm going 2-0 Everton.
I think it's going to be a really interesting one because if I'm Spurs, I'm playing Richarlison. I'm actually playing him. And a lot of people would think don't play him at Everton, you know, but Richarlison doesn't give a fuck about Everton, right? Let's be honest about it. Let's call a spade, right? I'm playing him, and I'm saying now he did come off injured, didn't he? 5 minutes into the game against Southampton, so I don't know if he's okay to play.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I think he's probably out of this one.
Right, but then he's not playing. Okay, I would have played him, but what I'm looking at Spurs is, if I'm Spurs, I completely get the point where 8 o'clock on a Monday night the place will be rocking. Everton get that draw at Chelsea. They'll know what's had to happen over the weekend, so they'll be extra, but they'll be even more behind the side because they could be back down 17th. But if I'm Spurs, I think the best way to go out and deal with Everton is to go out and attack them. And I know you can take the sting out of teams, like we said about earlier about United going and taking the sting out of St James's by sitting in. It doesn't work at Goodison, because what happens is, if Everton launch a ball 60 yards and Eric Dyer heads it out and it goes for a throw in near the corner flag, the place goes mental, right? So it doesn't work. The best way to take the sting out of Goodison is to go out and attack them, make them nervous. If you make Everton fans nervous, I've never seen a ground transmit itself onto a pitch anywhere as good. As Goodison Park, because what happens is the fans get nervous, they pass on to the players, they get nervous, and then it just goes back and forth where the nerves just shatter. And I'd be looking at Kulusevski, Son, Kane, and I'd be saying to myself, get at them, and try to get goals. Because I think if Spurs sit in, Everton will have loads of joy playing diagonal balls, getting the likes of Dwight McNeil onto his left foot and hitting in-swinging crosses, wherever it might be, and they live off that all night. They will live off that all night, not a problem to them. I think it'll be a draw as well. I think
like Alison's prediction, though. I think we should go with that. I do like Alison's prediction at the bottom there as a comment.
Yeah, Alison has 2-1.
I'll take that.
I'm going to go 2-2.
I just think Spurs crumble when the pressure's on.
100%. 100%.
And
they do, but the thing is, the best way to take the pressure off themselves is to look to their most influential players and play the game to them, rather than saying we have these guys up here, and if we can somehow survive here for 20 and then try to get them into the game. I don't think it works at Everton. I think if you go out and play Everton and get a few corner shots away, chances, the nervousness around that ground is phenomenal. It's like I've never seen before. So I think it'll be a draw. But again, we'll be back. A few of us, or whoever, will be back here next Thursday, and we'll be looking at that league table again, going, Jesus, that's changed, isn't it? Which is especially at the bottom, and of course at the top in the top four, it could change as well. Really nice chat. Kept us a bit longer than we should have, but it was really nice.
Enjoyed it.
Thanks a million to Liam. Thanks to Jamie. Thanks to Joe. Make sure to check out at Liam Paul Canning on Twitter, wherever you're looking for Liam. At Daily Hotspur on Twitter for Jamie. And at Wayman Joe on Twitter for Joe. And Just Joe Football Show on YouTube. Am I right, Joe?
That's the one, man.
Check them all out. They all do loads of different things throughout the week. So if you want to find out stuff about Spurs, United, Leeds, anything at all, go and check them out. That has been the Premier League preview show with Bookmakers TV. Thanks a million for watching. Hit the like button on your way out if you can. Leave comments underneath as well, because we always like the feedback. See you soon.